Okay, so this first section, finding the trig ratios of the acute angles, this one is very, very easy if you know SOHCAHTOA. So I'm only going to do the even problems, and you can do the odd ones if you want extra practice and look up those answers. So the first one, we'll start with S. Doesn't matter which one you start with. So we'll start with S, and we'll do sine, cosine, and tangent. So sine is the opposite side over the hypotenuse, SOHCAHTOA. So sine of S equals the opposite side from S, which is 28, over the hypotenuse, which is 53. So sine S equals 28 over 53. And then for all of these, I'll do this one, but I'm not going to do the others. You just put it in your calculator, 28 over 53 divided by 53, and 0.5283, and then it says to 4 decimal places. Also, make sure if you're not getting the same answer as me, make sure your calculator is in degree, not radian, because it'll give you the wrong answer if you're in radian. So make sure you're in degree. Okay, sine cosine of S is adjacent over hypotenuse. So if we're coming from angle S, here's adjacent and here's hypotenuse, 45 over 53. And then divide that in the calculator to get the decimal answer. And then tangent of S is opposite over adjacent. So from S, the opposite is 28 and the adjacent is 45, 28 over 45. Okay, so that is half of the first one because it does ask for both acute angles. So now if we're looking at R, the hypotenuse is still going to be 53, but now the opposite and adjacent sides switch. So let's start with sine of R. Sine R, cosine R, tangent R. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, R. Now the opposite side is 45, and the hypotenuse is still 53. So 45 over 53. Also notice that the sine of one angle is the same as the cosine of the other acute angle. 45 over 53 is the cosine of S and the sine of R. So the cosine is going to be the same as the sine. 28 over 53. We'll just check that real quick. Cosine of R, adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent is 28, hypotenuse is 53, 28 over 53. Yep, that's what we have. Tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite, 45 over adjacent, 28. 45 over 28. Okay, so that's all of them for 10. Now number 12, sine, cosine, tangent of X. And then sine, cosine, tangent of Y. Okay, 12. We'll start with X. Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. 3 over radical 13. I'm going to write that up here. Oh, actually, you know what? Because they want the decimal, it doesn't matter. I was going to say we want to rationalize the denominator because we don't want a radical in the denominator. But if you're just dividing this to find the decimal, then that's okay. You just do 3 divided by radical 13. Okay, cosine of X. Cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, 2 over radical 13. If they were asking you for the exact, then that means leave it as a fraction and you would have to rationalize, but we don't have to here. Tangent of X, opposite over adjacent, TOA, 3 over 2. Okay, sine of Y, well, the sine of one is the same as the cosine of the other adjacent angle, so we'll just use a shortcut here. and the cosine is the same as the sine of the other angle. And the tangent also is just flipped. But if you want to practice doing the so ka toa, for practice doing it that way, that's good too. Okay, so the sine and the cosine are the same, and the tangent is the same, but the reciprocal. All right, and then we'll do 14. Sine, cosine, tangent of, so here the acute angles are G and H. So they just mean the acute angle is anything but the right angle. So G, and then sine, cosine, tangent of H. Sine of G, opposite over hypotenuse. 2 over radical 5. Cosine of G. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent to G is 1. Over hypotenuse is radical 5. And then tangent is opposite. I just realized I didn't really explain opposite and adjacent. Hypotenuse is always the one opposite the right angle, but opposite is the side that's not touching the angle, and adjacent is the one next to it that's not the hypotenuse. All right, anyway, tangent of G, opposite over adjacent, 2 over 1, or just 2. Okay. So again, the sine and cosine are the same, but yeah, the sine and cosine are the same. Sine of one acute angle is the cosine of the other acute angle. So, and then instead of 2 over 1, this would be 1 over 2. Okay, so those are all the even numbers. And then try the odd on your own and check your answers just to make sure you can do it yourself without any help. These use a calculator to approximate. That's really easy. You just tan 23. Again, make sure you're on, if you hit mode, you're in degree, not radian. And then these you just plug in the calculator.